Hi, welcome back to the course, and we are studying Gavotte by Giuseppe Brescianello. This is part of the Partita 8, and here we already have very relevant information. For example, what's a partita? You should look for that. I would like to say some words about what a partita is. It's a collection of dances, and more often those are profane dances. But it doesn't mean that they are supposed to be danced. So, like nowadays, there are many dances that we hear that it's okay for people to really dance them, but they are meant to be played more as instrumental music and to be used for admiration of the virtuosity or the musical quality of the performance themselves. But it wouldn't be strange if people decided to dance them as if they were in a party. That was what meant for that back then being a dance. They could be danced, but like nowadays, they were most often heard as instrumental pieces themselves. Uh, a gavotte, it's a very interesting dance. It's still alive. There are people still dancing gavottes nowadays, and you can learn how to dance the gavotte. There are many good videos on YouTube. Just look for Gavotte, how to dance, and you see some tutorials teaching how to dance different types of gavottes. Giuseppe Brescianello, so it's Italy, we have some dates, and check it out. He is one of the late Baroque composers. Why I know that? Because the Baroque, well, we say that one date to consider the date of ending of the Baroque. Of course, it didn't end from night to day like that, but we say that it some date to consider its finish would be the death of Johann Sebastian Bach, which happened in 1750. It's also a good day to remember. 1750, it's a round number, easier to remember. And as Brescianello lived until 1758, so he's part of the very same generation, late Baroque then. And he was Italian. That's interesting because on the Baroque era, Italy and France were challenging themselves which country had the best music. And they have conflicting characteristics. Italian music were more cantabile and more focused on virtuosity, and French music was more dansabile, to be danced, and more sophisticated. And maybe one thing that led other countries to start also being great centers of music is because they mixed characteristics from the French music and the Italian music. Guess which country shared borders with Italy and French at the same time? Yeah, so the German word, well, it's still a mess, which country is back then or nowadays or in the future, but the German word is exactly what happens between France and Italy. And they mix characteristics of these two styles, and this is one of the reasons why German music started to sound more relevant on the Baroque era. Okay, those are some questions that I recommend you to look for the answers. I'm telling you some stuff, but my job is not only give all the answers. My job is also to make some questions which you should look for the answers yourself. And in the internet era, that's quite easy for you to see those answers. The harmony of the piece is very simple. The piece from start to finish has only 5 chords. It's in E major, A major, sorry, it's in A major, and it begins in the tonic, then the subdominant, the dominant then, and back to the tonic. Then we have a long melody full of neighbor notes, but it starts with notes from the subdominant and it ends with notes from the subdominant. So I would consider all these 3 measures as one big subdominant chord. So subdominant, then dominant, then we have the same things, and here we're not ending in the subdominant, we are ending in the subdominant relative. Then tonic, dominant with the 4th, dominant and tonic. The second section starts in the dominant, then the tonic, then the dominant of the dominant, so tonic, dominant of the dominant, dominant. Once more the tonic, dominant, tonic, then subdominant, dominant, tonic, dominant with 4th, dominant and tonic. And that's it, only 5 chords. The 3 functions very easily recognizable. Tonic being calmer, subdominant moderate tension, and dominant strong tension. This piece, I believe it's in the material mainly because of the polyphony, and also it's interesting for you to start learning some ornamentation, and those ornaments on the end of every section are very good ornaments to start working on. Let's start with the polyphony. Although the bass very often sounds not so interesting, if you have sung in a choir before, or if you are familiar with choirs, you will hear that the bass voice in choirs is quite similar to what's going on here. So, a, e, a, de, e, a, de, si, se, a, si, si, se, a, de, e. I've made some mistakes, sorry, but you got the feeling. Sometimes it's more interesting, the melody, like this is but sometimes it sounds just more like an harmonic accompaniment. Yes, it does sound like that, but it's very aligned to what's going on in choir music. So this is a typical bass line from that period, and it should be played like so, like one polyphonic line. And what you must do to make that sound? Well, if you in your head it sounds like one melody, then you play like a melody. If in your head it's just some notes out there that you're just reading dots in the score, then it won't sound like a line. To start sound like a line, I recommend you to work on that melody, singing out loud, preferably also saying note names, and it doesn't need to be a tempo. You can do it much slower. De, this is it doesn't need to be that as fast as the music, because what's important here is for you to put in your mind that information And if that information is there, when you're going to play without singing together, you will recall the melody. Same goes for the soprano. You can work on that very slowly. A, Giz, A, Giz, A, F, is, D, Giz, Ha, E, D, Si, Ha, Si, A, Fi, Z, D, Si, Ha, A, Si, A, E, and so on. You can work very slowly, and then when you start putting that piece a tempo, of course you're going to practice slowly for some time. You will call, oh, we have this shape, melodical shape going on, and so on. So it's very important for you to sing together, preferably also with note names. But to make the good polyphony working, it's not only that you need. You must also be aware, especially on the next sentence, the next phrase, to hold the notes for as long as they are written, because it should sound like one line uninterrupted, and not like some collection of notes and sighs, like no, so you know, okay, should sound continuous. You should really keep the notes until the beginning of the next one. And to do that, first you need to work on the pluck. You play, go there fast and release as fast as possible. Think, then go as fast as possible and release. Think, go as fast as possible, and well, it's an open string, so there's no need to release. But then you think, go as fast as possible. Not slow motion to go there. Because if you learn how to play those changes as fast as possible, you're going to be able to make them fast. If you learn them in slow motion and try to speed up, that's so much harder. Okay? It's better to have enough tempo for you to think and then make the movement as fast as possible, then to work already with the metronome, do the movement in slow motion and try to speed that up. That's so much harder. Okay? So, and one thing also that I recommend you to do is to work that particular section and another one in the second part slowly, because this kind of legato with two voices, it's harder to play slower than faster. So if you do them well slow, it means that you're going to do that well fast. So. It needs more concentration, believe me, try. And the slower you go, the harder it will be. The other section that you need to work also, that is on measures 25 to 28. And here the challenge is to keep the bass sounding on, because we have the bass. Si, A, Giza, Vise. And on the soprano, F, C, D, E, A, Cis, Fis, A, Gis. And then you have to keep those two voices going on. Okay, it's tempting to release this C sharp before and also this B, and so does, well, the other is open string, then it's quite easier. But especially the C sharp and the B, beware to let them ring as long as they should. Now we're going to talk about the mordente. This ornament in the Baroque era, the real rule is ornaments must begin by the dissonant note. This is the rule. There is a trick for people to remember, and the trick says you start with the upper note. Well, most often the upper note is the dissonance. This is the case because we are in an E major chord. The E major chord is E, G sharp, and B. And you are going to play an ornament on G sharp, so it means G sharp and A. G sharp is part of the chord, A is not part of the chord. Then we start with the A, but not because it's the upper note, it's because it's not part of the chord. Then it's a dissonance to the chord. That's why you begin with the A. There will be moments, especially in Scarlatti music, which the dissonance is not the upper note, is the lower note. You should start always from the dissonance, okay? So the real rule is you start from the dissonance from the chord. Most often the dissonance is the upper note, yeah, but there will be exceptions. So beware that the real rule is to start from the dissonant note, dissonance to the chord. That say that it begins on the upper note is just a trick, okay? So, but there we go, and we have already our finger playing the A, so it makes easier to play on the one same string and to do that ornament. But this kind of ornament, it's very important for it to sound in crescendo, or in decrescendo, it will go into sound softer and softer, but also it's important for it to speed up. It will sound faster but softer, like that. The softer the guitar very often gives us free, because it's hard to keep the same dynamics playing hammer-on and pull-offs. But the change of speed is something that you have to look for. And to achieve that characteristic, that ability, you should start working this ornament with the metronome by subdivision to subdivision. So you work there. For example, one ornament for each note. Then every two. 3, 4, 5. And that's why we work with the metronome and we don't stomp our feet, because if you have to concentrate on your finger and your feet at the same time, you're going to make mistakes. But I'm sorry, I don't have a metronome with me right now. That's why I made with my feet. But work with the metronome for you to achieve that. And if you can play good ornaments slow and fast, you can speed up quite easily. Beware that, okay, it's a dominant and then tonic. It's quite okay in this kind of situations for you to hold the dominant chord a little bit longer. It's advisable, but beware, one thing is to hold a little bit more, and other thing is to hold indefinitely just because you like the ornament. Okay, so work with the metronome for some time. This ending, this ba, da, you will feel that it will be too little time, and will want to hold on this ornament a little bit longer. That's fine, and you should hold a little bit longer. But studying with the metronome will give you a good measure of what would be the longest you can go. Okay? That's a very good piece. It's good to work on your polyphonic skills, your reading skills, and have fun.